I've seen some people suggesting that this Dillian Whyte Dereck Chisora rematch will not live up to the first fight in terms of action and entertainment. And some of the reasons that they're giving for this are the fact that Dillian Whyte has matured a lot as a fighter and as a person. He's not as fiery, he's not as impulsive. He's more about business now rather than taking things personal. So they're expecting a more technical performance from Dillian Whyte. And with Dereck Chisora, he's a guy who thrives on beef. You know, he's a guy who has produced most of his best performances off the back of some personal beef, some personal grudge or tension that he's had with his opponent. I mean, you go back to the Vitaly Klitschko fight, for example. He had a beef with Vladimir going into that fight because Vladimir had pulled out against him twice and hadn't compensated him for the money he lost, which he spent on training camps. Remember, Dereck Chisora at the time had not made a lot of money in his career. And just as a side note, recently, I can't remember which fighter it was, they came out and said that Eddie Hearn did compensate them for their training camp, etc., for a fight which Eddie Hearn was supposed to have them in, which fell through, or which the Eddie Hearn fighter pulled out of. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. Maybe one of you guys know. But they came out and said Eddie Hearn compensated them for their training costs. You know, just for you guys who feel like Eddie Hearn is the devil, Eddie Hearn's compensating people for, you know, when fights fall through, paying for their training expenses. Vladimir Klitschko didn't do that, and he had plenty of money. He wasn't paying no training expenses when he pulls out of a fight against Dereck Chisora twice, just to give you some insight into the different characters you find in boxing. Now, be that as it may, Dereck Chisora going into the Vitaly fight, he was angry, mainly with Vladimir, which is why he spat the water in his face. But just with the Klitschkos in general, he slapped Vitaly at the weigh-in, and, you know, he was fighting with smoke coming off him against Vitaly that night. He lost clearly on the cards, but he put in a gallant effort. And after the 12 rounds, it was Vitaly who was glad that the 12 rounds was over, and Dereck Chisora still had more gas in the tank. You see, when Dereck Chisora has a grudge, when he feels like he dislikes you, that's often when he produces the best performances. You know, I mean, you look at, even when there isn't a grudge, he sometimes tries to create one or manufacture one. Like going into the Pulev fight, he tried to start some beef with him at the weigh-in or the final press conference? And he has a history of doing this. And obviously we know before the first Dillian Whyte fight what happened there. So people are saying that because Dereck Chisora doesn't seem to be in the same place emotionally and mentally, he doesn't seem to be as hyped up, he doesn't seem to be as spiteful going into this rematch, they're not expecting so much from him. They're expecting a calmer Dillian Whyte and a calmer Dereck Chisora, basically, which means a less exciting fight. Now, I definitely take those points into consideration, but I'll say a few things about that as well. Dillian Whyte has improved technically. Dillian Whyte is a more responsible fighter now than he was maybe a couple fights ago, but he hasn't changed as a person completely. Dillian Whyte is still the kind of guy where if you bring war to him, he's going to respond with war. We saw that against Joseph Parker. He didn't just fight a 12-round snooze fest against Joseph Parker. No, he fought a 12-round slugfest against Joseph Parker. I mean, maybe it's a bit far calling it a slugfest. It was a slugfest in spots. Yeah. When it came time to exchange with Joseph, he wasn't shying away from that. He was right in there. That's who Dillian Whyte is. You see, Dillian Whyte doesn't have the foot speed to be able to stay away from a pressure fighter like Dereck Chisora for 12 rounds if Chisora's on his case. He doesn't have the foot speed. It don't matter how technical he wants to be, Dillian Whyte is going to be forced, if Chisora's coming at him, to fight fire with fire to try to keep him off, to try to win those exchanges. Yeah, he's going to be forced. This is not a Muhammad Ali / Huey Fury who can dance around the ring and stay away from you. I mean, unless Dillian Whyte is going to incorporate a lot more holding into his game, then I don't see how he's going to stop Dereck Chisora coming forward at him. If Dereck Chisora decides to come forward, all right? We know Dereck Chisora is a very strange man with strange ideas. Maybe he won't come forward. But if Dereck Chisora fights the fight he normally does, coming forward, applying pressure, I don't see how Dillian Whyte is going to be able to stay away. He's going to have to fight fire with fire to keep him off. So for me, how exciting this fight turns out to be is more dependent on what Dereck Chisora does than what Dillian Whyte does. I don't think Dillian Whyte's technical improvements, etc., are going to have that much bearing. They're going to have some bearing, but not that much bearing on how exciting the fight is. And even Dillian Whyte's mentality, you know, him being more professional now and not being caught up so more in the personal side of it. I don't think it's going to have that much bearing on the way the fight goes. I think it's mostly going to be down to Chisora. What does Chisora have left? Can he still apply pressure? Can he turn up the temperature? If he can, Dillian Whyte is going to meet fire with fire. That's who Dillian Whyte is. He's going to meet fire with fire, and it is going to turn out to be dramatic, action-packed, so on and so forth. Now, it is true that there seems to be less needle between these two in the lead up to this rematch. But there wasn't so much needle between Dereck Chisora and Carlos Takam in his last fight, was there? Maybe Dereck Chisora, now that he's turned to God and what have you, maybe he's in a different space in his life where he don't need to do that in order to draw great performances out of himself. I don't know. People find different ways to get the best out of themselves. Maybe Dereck Chisora turned into, you know, religion. Maybe that's his way of getting the best out of himself. I mean, for example, Evander Holyfield was somebody who he drew on, you know, religion, Jesus, etc., to get the best out of himself in terms of performances. And he would say this after fights: it's because of God, it's because I prayed and I did this, that, and the other. And look, it don't matter whether you believe in, you know, Jesus Christ and all that kind of stuff. It don't matter whether you believe in it. Holyfield believed in it. And he said that it was that belief that got him through a lot of fights. So don't denigrate how powerful belief can be. Again, it doesn't matter whether you believe what they believe is true. It's irrelevant. It's about the fact that their belief in a particular thing gives them strength. And perhaps Dereck Chisora has turned the corner and religion is going to give him strength in a similar way. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe not. You know, maybe it's a sign that he's coming towards the end of his boxing career and he needs to bow out because he don't have the killer instinct anymore. All will be revealed this weekend. But given the fact that the Carlos Takam fight was so dramatic and he had to produce so much in that fight, and he did fight hard, even though he was taking a beating, particularly towards the end of that fight, he was still able to produce tremendous punches, some of the best punches I've ever seen Dereck Chisora deliver in that Carlos Takam fight in his whole career. And he was able to produce that against an opponent he didn't really have any beef with, against an opponent who he wasn't flipping tables and, you know, rolling around on the floor at a press conference with. He wasn't doing none of that with Takam, but he was still able to produce that performance and that dramatic win, the KO win. So, look, none of us can know for certain how this fight is going to turn out. Maybe it'll turn out to be a stinker. Maybe it'll turn out to be a barn burner, same as the first fight. Maybe it'll be better than the first fight. Who knows? We just have to wait and see. There are too many variables to consider. But one thing I can say is when push comes to shove with Dillian Whyte and Dereck Chisora, they are both volatile characters. And so if they're not at each other's throats before the fight, that doesn't mean they won't be at each other's throats during the fight. These are guys who, you know, you just look at them wrong and they could go from 0 to 100 in a split second. That's how they are. They're volatile characters. They're alpha males. Dillian Whyte and Dereck Chisora are, you know, prototypical alpha males. So don't think that because it's calm now, it can't get fiery in a split second, even during the fight, because it definitely can. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you expecting a better fight? Are you expecting Dillian Whyte to win this fight more convincingly than he did the first fight? Because the first fight was very close, could have gone either way. Some people calling it a robbery, which is silly. It could have gone either way. Chisora could have won it by a point, Whyte by a point or two. Either way. Will Dillian Whyte win it more convincingly this time? Will he stop Chisora, or will Chisora beat Dillian Whyte? Will he get what he felt like he should have got first time around, which is a W next to his name? Will he have his hand raised at the end of the fight? Will he beat Dillian Whyte on points, or will he stop Dillian Whyte? Will he knock him out in a similar way to how he knocked out Carlos Takam? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. It's happening about. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.